A lot of the older guys in Chicago, guys that, are veterans of the street life and who have been in that life, who have gotten out. Some of these guys, obviously I greatly respect, but I have to disagree with them on one point that some of them make when they're talking to guys that are in that life that they used to be in, or guys that are in the streets, or guys that are just may not be in that life, but are just toting guns and, kind of trigger happy. They'll say, keep it amongst the guys who signed up to play that game. If somebody didn't sign up for that street life, for that gang life or whatever, leave them alone. Just keep it amongst yourselves. We know you're going to do it anyways. So, as long as you're going to do it, you might as well just try and play by the rules and don't get anybody else involved. Don't get neutrons, don't get kids and innocent people involved. The problem with that is that it's like playing baseball. If any of you guys used to do this, in like a small yard, and telling the kids, we know you're going to play baseball, just don't hit the ball too far. Like, don't break any of the neighbors' windows. Keep the ball within the confines of this yard. If you play that game, it's inevitable that somebody's going to mess up, because people are not perfect. People make mistakes. People have adrenaline, pumping through their veins when the heat is on, and it's in that moment, and people go too far. As long as that game is being played, innocent people are bound to get hurt. Like, it's inevitably going to happen. The game itself has to stop. The game itself is broken. The game itself is messed up. So anybody who's living in neighborhoods or even in the city at large where that game is being played is at risk, kids included. We had a weekend where a lot of that was going on, especially with kids, and a 3-year-old is dead, something which is very common in Chicago, and a 7-year-old was also shot on his way to church. It shows you the reality of what's going on here. It's not often what it's portrayed to be in drill music, man. It's like this. So 34 people were shot this weekend, 5 died. Now those numbers are not high for a Chicago weekend, but some of the victims is really what was tragic this weekend, man. Several children were among the victims, including a 3-year-old boy killed on Friday and a 7-year-old boy that was shot on his way to church. So the 3-year-old was killed in a road rage incident. A $7,000 reward is being offered. He was killed in West Lawn, in the West Lawn neighborhood on the south side. The Chicago Police Superintendent David Brown was speaking up about the violence at a news conference this afternoon. So he said that the family of the 7-year-old boy was driving to church when they noticed a man breaking into one of their other cars that was parked. Police said pulled out a rifle and fired shots in the family's direction, striking the boy in the leg. Now, notice the wording here. They said he pulled out a rifle. So that wording is a little curious, because that means the words pulled out suggests that the rifle was previously concealed. And I know he wasn't concealing any rifle on his person. So he might have had it in a bag of some sort or something like that, or I don't know where the rifle was concealed or what type of rifle it was. But if I'm approaching somebody and he's got a rifle, I mean, it's hard to conceal a rifle. So first thing I'm going to do if I'm approaching anybody is to check. Like, just size him up, like see if he's got anything on him. Try to see if he's got anything on him. A lot of times, you can tell by the way that a guy is walking, if he's carrying. And that's with a handgun. When it comes to a rifle, it's much easier. Now, again, I don't have any video of this, so I don't know if the family knew that he had this rifle or not. But I'm not going to get into it with somebody with a rifle. I'm going to take my L, whatever it might be. If it's property, unless it's a person, that's a different story if he's messing with somebody. But if it's property and the guy's got a rifle, and I'm going to let the police handle that one. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to maybe record it from a distance or something, but I'm going to let the police handle that one, man. But the suspect was caught by the police, and the child is expected to recover, thank goodness. But notice, he didn't shoot anybody except the kid. Again, I uploaded that video not too long ago about how, the counts were riding on the Kings, shot up, the funeral or the vigil or whatever it was, and hit nothing but neutrons. Like, this is extremely common, man. Now, one account of what happened was that the family had confronted the guy who was breaking into the car, but according to them, all they did was make eye contact, and the guy just pulled out this gun and started blasting. And the kid who got hit, the 7-year-old, his name was Legend. He was 7 years old, and this was over by 108th and State, which is actually only a couple blocks away from where 2 other people were killed over by 110th. This weekend on the exact same block, and this was only a couple blocks away from that, so that area was like really hot this weekend, but it seemed to be like unrelated stuff, because this was just like somebody breaking into a car, and apparently, like I said, all they did was look at the guy and he opened fire. He was caught by police, but it shattered this 7-year-old's femur bone, which is like the longest and strongest bone in the body, and this is going to be a long, grueling recovery for this kid. And he was, he looked like he was an avid sports player, and he was giving an interview to the news, man. Shout out to Legend. 7-year-old, already gotten shot in the leg, and, a leg shot, that sounds like it's not a big deal. That's a big deal, man, especially the femur bone. If it's shattered, like, that's a long recovery process, man. And sometimes a person never walks right again after that, and he's in excruciating pain right now over at the hospital. So, again, nobody hit except the 7-year-old, man. So, these guys are opening fire and not hitting nothing but kids. So, thankfully, though, he survived and didn't, bleed out and die from that, because it could have been a lot worse. But they said, we've seen children shot across the city in ridiculous numbers. According to Chicago Police Deputy Chief Larry Snelling, he said, when did we become a society where we stop caring about the children? So the shooting came days after a 3-year-old named Mateo was killed. On Friday, police said that the shooting was sparked by road rage as the child sat in the back seat of his mother's car near Cicero and 71st in the West Lawn neighborhood. Now, that's a neighborhood that you guys may have seen in some of my videos on my previous channel. That neighborhood, it didn't strike me as that dangerous. West Lawn, you're not too far from Midway Airport, about a mile south of that. And I think there's like a Jewel right there, not too far from there. There's a lot of shopping around there, a lot of restaurants. And it's like the border of a neighborhood that appears to me to be pretty sweet. I could be wrong. That might have just been my impression. I know a lot of times the neighborhoods in Chicago can give a wrong impression, but it seemed to be a pretty quiet area. Kind of a mix of races, every race I saw over there. I don't know, anybody from the West Lawn area can leave feedback in the comments, but every time I've been down there, I felt pretty safe. At least 6 minors have been shot in the past week, according to ABC 7 Chicago. Shout out them and for covering this story too. And they said, meanwhile, a prayer vigil was held today for Mateo at 66th and Pulaski. That should have concluded by the time that I'm uploading this video. A Chicago police officer also killed a man in the Old Town neighborhood on Sunday morning. Now, I was on Blackhawk Street, and I wasn't at the location, but I was on Blackhawk about a mile west of where this took place. I don't have the car anymore, so I couldn't get over there across the expressway, but I'm going to show Blackhawk right here. So I'm going to just point the camera. So it's about a mile east of where I am on this street. Blackhawk, it's like about, I would say 2 miles north of downtown. And that neighborhood, it's got problems, but it's a very gentrified neighborhood, though. It's one of those neighborhoods where there's a huge contrast of very upscale housing, but also a lot of violence. So at about 5:05 a.m., the man believed to be in his 20s was shot by an officer, and I'm going to put up the pic of the victim in the 400 block of West Blackhawk, and that's according to the superintendent. And the man was taken to the hospital where he died from the gunshot wounds. So before the shooting, 2 officers on patrol were flagged down by a person who said that someone had pointed a gun at them. After the cops found the man who allegedly pointed the gun, a foot chase ensued, and the officers temporarily lost sight of the man. When the man was found a second time, one officer opened fire, fatally striking him. So I don't know if the guy had upped the gun at them or not. He doesn't say that he did. Hopefully there's body cam video of this, but at any rate, David Brown couldn't say how many shots were fired or whether the man pointed a weapon at the officers. A weapon and shell casings that didn't match the officer's weapon were recovered near the man. Okay, so there were shell casings that were not fired by the cop. That didn't come from the cop's gun at the scene. So whether or not they came from the suspect's gun, I don't know. But at any rate, a guy named Casey, who was 30 years old, was found with a gunshot wound to the head on Saturday inside of a home on the south side. And police in the medical examiner's office were saying that he was pronounced dead at the scene. About an hour and a half before that, a 30-year-old man was killed in a shooting in Roseland. And there were 2 people killed on this same block over the weekend. This was off of 110th and in the 300 block of West 110th. So that's a little bit, that's like 3 blocks west of State on 110th. And this guy was shot at about 1:20 p.m. right in the middle of the day. A 21-year-old man was found with multiple gunshot wounds later Saturday in the exact same block. And I'm going to put up the pics of these 2 guys. He was found 9:05 p.m. by responding officers, and he was taken to the hospital where he died. And 2 teens were wounded by gunfire Saturday in Greater Grand Crossing on the south side. A boy was 14, and the other guy was 19, and they were over at 72nd and Dobson at around 6:20 p.m. Somebody pulled up next to them in the car, and the occupant started shooting. Another 14-year-old boy was also wounded on Saturday in Auburn Gresham, and this was over off of 87th. He was walking in the 800 block of West 87th when somebody approached him and fired, and he was struck in the shoulder and leg. So 14 years old, and people are pulling up on these guys. I mean, you guys see how young they're getting to him, man. But early Saturday, a man was shot during an attempted robbery in Kenwood. This was about 12:05 a.m. The guy was 29. He was over on 47th. He was shot as 2 suspects were trying to rob him, and he was in good condition. So I'm going to put up the pictures of some other kids here from Chicago that have been killed in cars, that have been shot up by people that, I mean, I don't know if they see these kids in these cars or not, but I mean, we know story after story after story like this. On my old channel, I had just been doing that story about Jaslyn, the little, I think she was 7 years old too, killed in the backseat of the car at McDonald's over on the west side. I mean, so many, there's so many names, you know, that list could go on all day. You know, I hope that, I wish it would go back at least to the old days when dudes would stop associating with guys that killed kids. Like, you kill a kid, you're not with us anymore, you know. But it's like I mentioned at the beginning of the video though, man, when people are playing that game, this is bound to happen because, you know, nobody's perfect. And, a lot of these guys are high, you know, super high, or just at a place in life where they just don't give a care anymore. They may have lost multiple homies, family members, been kicked out the house by their mom living on the street. And you got a guy walking around with a ticking time bomb. You know, like anything, like just look at him the wrong way and he's going to blast. So you got to get a lot of guys like this in Chicago. And, you know, it's like they bring danger and chaos everywhere they go. And I've even been locked up with guys that were, at least according to them, like this. So yeah, it's a dangerous city out there, man. But as long as that game is being played, the streets, the gang life, this is going to continue to happen, man. Because you know, like I say, just like baseball, you play in somebody's backyard, somebody's window is going to get busted. You can tell people 1,000 times to keep it in their yard, it ain't going to happen. Once in a while, even if that's their intent, once in a while, that ball's going to go over the fence. And rest in peace to everybody that gets hit. And there's your boy Winnie City Report. I'm out.